Hi.
Hello there. We're in the last couple of pages of In Search of Christian Freedom's chapter, A Congregation of Free People, page 691. Ray's subhead is An International Community. Christians of the first century met in relatively small gatherings, in homes, and, once Pentecost had passed, are nowhere shown to have ever produced large assemblies involving great numbers of persons drawn from different areas. They were, nonetheless, all part of a greater earthwide community, gathering or congregation, by virtue of being all spiritually gathered together to God's Son as their head. As had been seen, or as has been seen, he means earlier in the book, this extended relationship did not express itself through being tied to, or into, or being subject to Jerusalem as a center of religious administration, for they looked instead to a heavenly source as their center of direction. This unity was expressed in their love for all others, whether seen or unseen, personally known or unknown, who shared a faith in common, for that love is the perfect bond of union. And he references there Colossians 3:12-14.
They demonstrated their united relationship by hospitality, extending it to those previously strangers, by sharing their good things with one another, by coming to the aid of those in need wherever they might be, by sharing letters and other encouraging news with those who gathered elsewhere, by praying on such one's behalf, feeling with them in their trials and difficulties, just as family members would naturally do for one another. Thus the observation is made regarding Paul's part in all this. And here he references Robert Banks again in his book, Paul's Idea of Community. Quote, he sought to build up enduring relationships of a personal rather than an institutional character. These scattered Christian groups did not express their unity by fashioning a corporate organization, but rather through a network of personal contacts between people who regarded themselves as members of the same Christian family. End of quote.
And Ray goes on, we can do the same today. We have the freedom to do the same today. It is right for us to desire association. We should be open to it, and not only be open to it, but should desire and seek it, strive to maintain it despite imperfections. Yet if we cherish Christian freedom, we will never do this at the cost of sacrificing integrity to truth, the truth represented in Christ. We remember the apostolic exhortation, you have been redeemed at tremendous cost. Don't therefore sell yourselves as slaves to men. And that is a reference to 1 Corinthians 7 verse 23 in the Phillips version. We do not need to buy fellowship at the cost of letting any religious system bind us to its creed and to submission to its authority structure, or let its leaders make us feel we ought to view ourselves as supporters of their denomination. An alive, open-minded, and open-hearted interest in people, a willingness even to commit to people, and genuine interest in friendship is one thing. Committing to a system is another. I think it's fair to say Ray is really seriously spooked by religious systems and even denominations. But
any kind of organization. But, you know, I think it's kind of implying that if you are attached to any organized group or a denomination, you're somehow sacrificing truth. You don't have to sell out truth in order to be part of a denomination. And I think he has this idea that the denominations are like the Jehovah's Witnesses were.
yeah.
That they have that same quality of leadership being done in a
authoritarian way?
Yeah, and it's just not true. At least it's not been what we've seen.
It's not my experience, nor is it my study of the churches. If anything, they have the opposite problem. But I think the cult experience, though, so seriously poisons your your view of any kind of authority structure, you end up maybe going way too far in the opposite direction. As
Yeah.
I sense Ray is doing that here.
You see no possible good things about a
Structure.
larger group and a structure. But
Yeah.
where is accountability? And where do you get away from kind of incestuous thinking among people if it's a small group? You need some checks and balances.
In our church experience, we have found that most churches, certainly of the older churches, have too little authority and therefore too little accountability. They do pretty well at practical Christian works on a local level, and on a denominational level, the older structures anyway are good for accountability. But within the local churches, authority and authoritarianism are not the problem. It's lack of authority generally, and which leads to redundancy and overlapping works between local churches because there's not enough cooperation in our structure.
Yeah, so that, we should recognize each other's good qualities and then help each other with those things instead of trying to duplicate it.
Yeah.
That is more of the frustration that you would see among churches. But
Yeah.
within denominations, some of them are extremely good at certain things. So we should support them if they're really good at a particular need in the community.
Yeah, should we say it again? I don't think we can say it too emphatically to some ex-witnesses. Cults are not denominations, and denominations are certainly not cults.
Yeah.
They have different dynamic, and that's why cults succeed, whereas many church denominations are stagnant, because they don't have authority
They
structure.
don't have that power over the people.
The power of coercion that a cult assumes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we wanted to link to a couple of videos series that connect to this issue. One is Slaves of Men, which analyzes the structure of cults. So we'll link to the first video in that series, and there's others connected to that you'll see at links at the end. And the other one is on 7 characteristics of a healthy Christian community, based on Acts chapter 2.
Right.
And then Ray ends the chapter next time by citing several scriptures on the analogy of the household, not just the family analogy, but the household of God analogy, which Paul takes up in Timothy.